Hello and welcome everybody to Bodacity's Ask the Experts. I'm Jannette Anderson and I'm here today with the fabulous Linda Easthouse, who is joining us all the way from her home in Mexico. I know so many people who get around a lot. Now, Linda's also from Calgary, where I'm from. That's where I first met her. Let me tell you a little bit about her. And as part of our month-long commitment to wellness, claim your body, and wellness from the inside out, Linda's here to talk about some of the work that she does, some transformative alternatives for health and wellness, and how to take care of yourself in new and better ways. So let me just tell you a little bit about Linda, and welcome, Linda. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to this time we have.
Cool. So Linda it's little, so I have to squint while I read. Linda is a coach, educator, and health advocate with 10 years experience as a certified practitioner of health kinesiology. I always have a challenge with that word. And matrix energetics, using hands-on therapies that restore the body, mind, and spirit. She assists people to take control of their health, establish healthy patterns, and gain control over their stresses, which, as we all know, is a very, very, very big issue nowadays. So welcome, and I'm so glad you're here. And I have lots and lots of, questions for you and things that we want to find out. But first, let's start with what's not in the official bio. What would you like people to know about you that they probably wouldn't guess just from, the official stuff that's out there? That's something unusual we wouldn't guess just by looking at you.
Well, I've come by being a natural health therapist or a practitioner, whatever you want to call me these days. I don't call myself any of those things, but they're terms people understand. Quite growing up in it, my family comes from a long background of that. And yet I find the science side of it the most fascinating. I love knowing why what we do works. I love sharing with people how their body actually functions and what's going on for them and how they can change it and what things will change it and why they'll change it so people know what they're doing. To me, the science side of it is the fun side. I love the work and I love helping people get control of their own health and their own stress and making huge jumps forward. But I think for myself, one of the biggest things is what I've seen it do in my family's life and my kids' lives, and what I've seen it do in the non-health arenas. Taking care of yourself and taking care of your stress and removing some of the things that sabotage yourself allow you to make huge changes in every area of life, not just your health. We moved to Mexico a year ago, and absolutely love it here. It's a fabulous place to work from. It's a fabulous place to live in. And yet we're so connected with everything that's going on in Calgary and Canada and other places because the technology allows us to do it. But it was really the work that I do for myself and my family that allowed us to make that jump. It allowed us to sort of get out of the rat race and work from here in a much more relaxed way, and absolutely love it.
Cool. Well, and let's talk briefly before we get into kind of the nitty-gritty of the health, because I know there's a lot of people in our community who are thinking of doing this mobile lifestyle, who, lots and lots of people more and more are now saying, okay, I want to have my ideal life. And part of that means working part-time for Mexico, or, I think we crossed paths last in Belize? No, not Belize. Panama. Yeah, Boquete, Panama. When you and your husband were visiting there, and you'd lived somewhere in Central America, didn't you, for a while as well?
We've lived in many places. I lived in Costa Rica for a year, many years ago. I grew up mostly in South America. As a child, I spent time in Chile and in Mexico and in various other countries. Guatemala, etc. And so I've spent a lot of my life in Latin America, which makes me very comfortable with it. But I've been sort of a mobile nomad most of my life.
Right. So what would you, I know this isn't our topic and we'll come back to our topic, but what would you say is one of the biggest benefits and biggest downsides or drawbacks of being this mobile nomadic lifestyle and working on creating a business while you're doing this?
Isn't that the trick? I think the biggest benefit is that it allows me to live in a place that is much less electromagnetically saturated. Calgary, I find, I was just there for a month. I just literally got back less than a week ago. the electromagnetic fields and the amount of digital saturation that's in the air is very hard on the physical body and very hard on the emotional body. And so a lot of people are finding a lot of anxiety and frustration and anger, and it literally is in the air because of the saturation of the electromagnetic fields. And that's true of most of North America. Even in the rural areas these days, those signals are still there. And so living here has really lowered that. And I find it much easier to work in many ways simply because I don't have to deal with that all the time. And so one of the benefits is it allows you to live in a place that is more physiologically supportive to me. Because I tend to be a relatively sensitive person, and because I work in the area of energy, and because I work in the area of the meridians and the physical body's energy flows, when you're living in a highly saturated area, it can be very draining. And to me, to be able to work from a place that is supportive of my work rather than draining of my work has been one of the absolute pluses to it.
Awesome.
Really find that useful.
And how have you found managing the business side of it in terms of clients, getting clients, working with clients, etc., when you're bopping around?
I really haven't found it's changed a lot, except that some of the clients who wanted hands-on only, I've passed on to other people that I work with. There are people in Calgary who still live there that have picked up those clients for me, for which I'm very grateful. But I find most of my work was moving online anyway. Why would people drive 35, 40 an hour to come to a 1 hour session and then drive that back in the traffic and be so stressed over the time and effort to get there, or have to arrange babysitting and all this kind of stuff to be able to come to a session when they can do it in the comfort of their home on video conferencing? The fact that technology has allowed us to do these kinds of things so seamlessly now is just, it makes it so simple. So even in Calgary, I was seeing a lot of my clients on Zoom anyway. So this really hasn't been that difficult for me. And then in terms of advertising, most of my new clients come by word of mouth from happy clients. I don't do a lot of advertising. I do some Facebook Live. I do some podcast. I do some interviews here and there. I post on my blog and those kinds of things. And beyond that, really happy clients make new customers. And I don't do a lot of advertising otherwise, and find that referral network is my most important new client stream.
Cool. So tell us what you do.
I actually do what is now called Natural Bioenergetics. It used to be called Health Kinesiology. We're just in the process of changing the name over, partially because Natural Bioenergetics simply explains it much more accurately than Health Kinesiology does, because nobody knows what kinesiology means anyway. And also because of some government regulation issues going on in Canada, a name change was necessary. And so we're in that process. So you'll hear Health Kinesiology, you'll hear Natural Bioenergetics. We're talking about the same thing. And what it is a meridian therapy of helping people clear out the stress in their life that affects them, get their own magnetic fields flowing more efficiently, letting the stress out of those things, so the body simply heals itself more effectively. It's kind of like, sometimes I say it's like traditional Chinese medicine minus the needles. So we're looking at acupressure points, we're looking at the lymphatic system, we're looking at some herbs, not many, but we do occasionally use herbs as well. But it's mostly really about tuning the electric system to make it function properly. I often use the example of a computer. When you get it and it's new, the programs run fast and quick and everything works together beautifully, and over time they get slower and sluggish, and then this one won't open and that one won't go. So you have the software refreshed. You clean out all the crap, you get out all the garbage, you reset the programming, and then everything runs really well again. Well, Natural Bioenergetics cleans out the garbage, resets the programming, allows us to reset the way your body interacts with electromagnetic fields, and suddenly your body just works a whole lot better. And whether that's at the physical level or the emotional level or the mental level, all of the financial level, it works on any level that you want to apply it to.
Awesome. And this is something, a methodology, a system, a process that you developed, correct?
No. Dr. Jimmy Scott developed this. It came out of the kinesiology movement in the 40s and 50s out of California originally with Dr. Goodhart. Dr. John Thie developed what's known as Touch for Health. Dr. Jimmy Scott, who they were sort of cohorts in that same group of people developing all this stuff, developed what he called at that time health kinesiology. Other people developed different ones. So there's kind of a whole family of related ones there. I am now the lead teacher for Canada, but I didn't develop it. I'm quite happy to be the pedagogue in teaching it. But we're very grateful for Dr. Jimmy Scott's work in developing it originally.
Okay, so I might be obviously misremembering. Did you and your husband have a training school for this process?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
That's still, and I travel back and forth. That's why I was in Canada for 3 weeks, was teaching.
Okay, awesome. And so how is this different than all of the other methodologies and modalities that are out there? What does this really hone in on and help people with, and how is it different than other options?
Well, this marries kind of two processes together. In most of the kinesiology versions, like Touch for Health and Applied Kinesiology and many of the other ones, they're using the muscles to send a message to the meridian system to change something. So they're taking the muscles and using the strength and movement of the muscles to send a message into the body's nervous and parasympathetic and brain processes. We say, okay, well, if you want to send it into those systems, why don't you go directly into the meridian? Okay. So what we have done is bypass that muscle movement and use the muscles only to monitor how the body's response is. So instead of correcting it with the muscle, we're correcting it with the acupuncture points and going directly onto the lines of the acupuncture points, and then we use the muscles to monitor how effective it's being. Because the brain has this feedback system, and it's really a feedback loop that we're using, where if you are stressed by something, so if you say the word no, that is a universally stressed word. If you say the word no, the brain registers that and sends a message back to all of the muscles to say, go weak, relax, you don't want to engage with this. And so the muscles get weak. And if you say yes, which is a universally non-stressed word, the brain sends a message that says, oh, great, ready for the next instruction. I'm alert now. So we use that monitoring system to figure out how the brain is responding to things. So we can have people think of a word, or think of an emotion, or think of a process, or think of something in their life that we think is stressful, and their muscles will tell us whether or not it is actually stressful to them. And if it is, then we can test through and figure out what's going to correct that stress. And it may be a thought process, it may be an herb, it may be a stone, it may be many different things. It may be holding some of the acupressure points, it may be doing some of the techniques that we teach people to do for self-care. So those things then retune the energy, reprogram the way the body's responding until the muscle can hold strong in the face of that stress. So we're not saying that we're going to try and make you completely stress-free. We're going to give you the ability to stay strong and centered and focused in the face of the stress you're going to live in, because you're going to live in it one way or the other.
Right.
And so
go ahead. Yep. So we
really want people to be able to not just manage their stress, but address it in such a way that the body knows not to send off the stress response to it. So you don't set off the fight or flight to things that shouldn't set them off. So many people live in this chronic fight or flight, and it's because their programming has gotten so worn down that everything causes fight or flight. And we want to retrain the body to say, no, you don't need to go into fight or flight for that. Use this pattern instead. And so it's really retraining the body's ability to respond to the stresses that a person lives in.
Right. So that leads my question is, what are some ways to manage that stress process? So what are some tips and hints for people? I know that you do assessments and you go through a whole process with people and create protocols for them, but what are some generic tips and hints that would help people?
Well, I think there's one thing that's really important, and is that most people know what they need to do. They're just not consistent at doing it. So my first thing to say to everybody is do what you know. Be consistent at doing what you know. So eat properly, drink water, go to bed, avoid the chemicals and toxins where you can, clean up your environment in terms of chemicals and toxins that affect your body, lower your exposure to electromagnetic fields, use some of the protective devices, do the things that you know how to do, and that will make a big leap forward. But beyond just doing consistently the things you know you should do, then there are some what we call toning exercises, ways for you to help your electrical system already. And those are on my website. They are free videos that you can go and watch and follow along and work with. So if you go onto my website, onto the resources page, there's I think there are 8 or 9 free videos there of things that you can do for yourself. And I want to highlight just 2 of them.
What's the website?
It's www.easthousecenter, and center is spelled the Canadian way with an RE.com.
Okay.
And then the resource page, so /resources.
Okay.
And on there you'll see self-help videos. So if you go to the self-help videos, we'll talk about 2 of those. The first one would be the emotional stress release. If you look at the videos there, you'll see one that's called emotional stress release. And it's really very simple. It's simply placing your hands straight back from your eyes into your hairline here with your thumb.
Okay.
Taking your little fingers and putting them straight above your eyeballs, halfway up on your forehead.
Okay. Little fingers. Okay.
Yeah, and then pulling your hands around so your index fingers stick at the top, meet together at the top of your head.
Okay.
And you don't need to press them. You just need contact there. And then think about what's stressing you. So think about something that's really stressful to you, and just hold those points where you think about it for a few minutes. And
are these fingers touching your head?
They can. It doesn't matter. They don't have to. Just these ones have to touch.
Okay.
The other 2 are just kind of keep them out of the way.
Okay.
And as you think about what's stressing you, you'll start to feel kind of pulses bumping around under your fingers. That's your stress level setting off. And as you think about it for a few minutes, it'll get calmer and calmer and calmer until it'll just kind of go away. Your thinking will get smooth and easy. And what's going on is that as soon as you set off the fight or flight by thinking about something really stressful, then this allows us to go in and turn it off and say, brain, false alert, don't want to do that, don't need that. Because the fight or flight takes all of the oxygen and the blood flow out of the brain and sends it to your arms so that you can fight. It takes all of the oxygen and blood flow out of your digestive area to your legs so that you can run. Then you don't digest things well and you don't think well. You stop using the frontal cortex of your brain and you start using the primal cortexes at the back. So instead of thinking about what you want to respond, you're responding out of gut instincts, which are usually not a very good way to respond to things. So doing this little technique tells the body, shut off the fight or flight, false alarm, put the blood back in the brain, get the frontal cortex going again, oxygenate the brain again, start thinking again, and then you can think about it in a very different way. And so, you know, when you're really stressed about something, or you feel foggy, or you feel like you're just a couple of minutes of that will really calm things down and allow you to see things differently and respond differently. And we teach that to kids for school. We tell them, put your helmet on. So we teach them to just put their helmet on like this and put their elbows down on their desk and sit for a second or 2 or a minute or 2. And it calms them right down. And we often will talk with their teacher and tell them, when they do that, just leave them alone. Don't call any attention to them. Don't say anything to them. Leave them alone. Give them 2 minutes of that, and they'll be able to return to the classroom and pay attention. If you don't, you know that child's going to escalate and end up in the principal's office. And that little technique has saved many a child from many a principal's office visit. And so those kinds of things are just amazing little ways to turn down your stress levels rapidly. And there's some other ones in there, those videos, that if you just do them a few times a day, you'll be amazed at how quickly it'll help you lower your stress levels.
Okay, awesome. So I posted that in the comment section for any of you who want to go and click on that. And what are some other ways for reducing stress and feeling better quicker?
Well, the second thing, or the third thing, I guess, the first one is just do what you need to do. The second is go in and find those things. We call those exercises taming the conscious dragon, because you're aware that you are stressed. You know you have a problem. You know what you're stressed about. So then you want to bring those down using those techniques. The third thing is that so much of our stress is completely subconscious. We're not even aware of why we're stressed.
Right.
We don't recognize the relationship between what we're doing and the emotional baggage or history internally that's setting off the alarm bells. And so we might be doing something that we think should be quite normal, and yet we feel ourselves getting stressed, and we feel the alarm bells going off, and we don't know why. And so then we need to look at what are the subconscious drivers that are creating those stresses. And sometimes some of those exercises that on the self-help videos will really help. But sometimes, you know what, you just need to get some help. We can't see our own blind spots. We can't see our own stuff most of the time.
Right.
And it's clear to somebody else that we're really stressed, and we go, oh no, I'm fine. Well, we're not fine because they can see that, but we can't see our own blind spots. And so it's really useful to get some help. And one of the programs that we've developed recently that has been very, very helpful to many people now, it's called Clear, Clean, and Boost. And what we do is we use a radionics program to send waves out to people to help them clear out the old subconscious garbage that they don't need anymore, that's driving behaviors that they don't want. And those behaviors create blocks and sabotages that aren't useful to us. And so we use a radionics machine. It's actually a machine that we program with a frequency, and we connect it to the person via their picture and their birth date. And it actually entangles. We used to think radionics, they called it radionics because it was radio waves, and they thought they were actually sending waves out to people. Well, we know actually that's not how it works. The science has advanced and we understand it better. What we're doing is we're taking the person's, what we would call grid point, and entangling it with the frequency here. And so when we create the frequency in the machine and entangle it with their picture and birth date, that resonates with them in their body. And the reason it works is what quantum physics calls entanglement. And the studies done out of San Francisco University have made it sort of really clear for people to understand how this process works. They took a couple of cells off of a guy's arm and put them in a petri dish, and then heated them up and measured the response on his skin to see if it changed. And it did. And they cooled them down, and it changed. So they put him in the next room away from the cells, and it did it again. And they put him in the next lab over, and they could still measure on his skin the differences in the temperature and the change being done in the lab on the cells from him. That entanglement says every little cell of you, every bit of you, every identifier of you is connected to the rest of you. And if we do it to one of you, we do it to all of you. So if we put that wave, that frequency, that new information into one cell, it transmits into the rest of the body and into the rest of the cell. And so we can take your picture and your birth date, which is enough of an identifier for your system to understand it. We give it a new frequency, and it transfers it back to you and gives it to all of you. So we are wonderfully made. We are amazingly connected. Every cell of every cell is a part of every bit. And so sending that wave into just that little identifier of you allows you to receive that whole thing. And so with those radionics programs, it's very easy then to send people the supportive, helpful waves that make life easier in general. And so each week I create the program and send it out to everybody who's signed up for the program, and they get a clear something, a clean something, and a boost something. So we do the 3 parts each week. So it'll be clear negative fields, or clear old beliefs, or clear sabotage, or clear, there's 48 different ones. And then clean things like emotions, beliefs, clean brain fog. Last week's was brain fog. This week's is clean emotional imbalance. And then boost is something different every week. Last week was harmony. This week it's income. And I just test off the various lists what words we're going to use for the different week, and every week they get a different set of those 3 sent out to them. And what we wanted to do was offer all of the people listening here an opportunity to get 2 weeks of that for free, just as our gift to you to help you in your journey on your way. No commitments. All we need is your picture and your birth date, and we'll put you on that program for 2 weeks just so you can experience it, so you get kind of understand how some of this modern technology really affects our body, and the things we can do to support ourselves and get support in ways that used to be very difficult and now are quite simple. And so that's a program that we're very happy to offer people just as a gift. Thanks for listening. Thanks for participating with us, and enjoy 2 weeks of getting some of your field cleared, cleaned, and boosted.
That's awesome. Thank you. So how do people access that?
The easiest way to access it is if they go onto my other website called www.lindaeasthouse.com, and there is a newsletter sign up on there. That newsletter is actually not a newsletter. I don't send out newsletters off of there. That's where people sign up to get onto the trial, onto the free 2 weeks. So if they sign up for that newsletter, what they'll get is 2 weeks of this. They'll get a little letter saying, welcome to the Clear, Clean, and Boost program. We hope you enjoy your 2 weeks, that sort of thing. And it'll tell them what they're getting in their 2 weeks so that they can sort of feel along with it and recognize and see what they're getting. I think it's really helpful when people kind of recognize and are able to put words to the things that they want to use. So we're glad to do that. And if they just put that in there, and then they will have to either message me on Facebook Messenger, that's the easiest way, or email me off of the website is fine. A picture of themselves sort of from the chest up against a clear background. It can't be a busy background, and preferably a light colored background, along with their birth date, and then we can put them onto the program and they will get 2 weeks of that, just to help boost them along their way and give them a gentle push in the right direction of clearing up their meridian system.
Awesome. That's very generous. Thank you. I've put it into the comments section. So if you want to sign up for the complimentary 2 week session to try that out, because it, I mean, it does sound, especially for people who don't know much about quantum physics and the advances and changes in what's going on in the world, it sounds very woo-woo, and it sounds
but it's not.
it sounds quite fantastic, and so for many people, the solution to that is to try it and see if you notice any changes, see if you notice the difference, see if you feel a benefit, and I imagine that there's some people that they really notice it, and some people it might be more subtle, but one of the best ways to find out what serves and supports you is to try it out. So I recommend that you go and get that from www.lindaeasthouse.com, sign up for the newsletter, and go to Easthouse. I also put that in the comments, but it went away now. Easthouse Center, CENTRE.com, for the videos on ways to really practically reduce stress, techniques that you can do right now. Just 2 more questions, and then we got to run because we could keep going all day. Oops, sorry. Excuse me. Sorry. And in case you're wondering, no, I'm not sitting in the dark. I'm just in Baltimore. It's very warm here, so we have some of the lights out, and it's very warm where she is as well. My question was, a lot of these things that you talked about, do what you know. I'm curious, why do you think we don't do what we know? I know it's a big question to kind of end on, but because you're right, it's not that we don't know what we can do to support ourselves, to support our physiology and our bodies and stuff. So what is one of the things that you would recommend that will help people to actually do the shit they know?
I think part of why we don't do what we know we should do is that, unfortunately, many of those things that we know we need to do are slow. They take time. You're not going to see a difference in a week. You're not going to see a difference in a month. You might need to do it for 6 months before you really see the benefit. Yeah. And people give up too soon for the most part. And part of why they give up is because they're too stressed.
Yes.
And so if you can lower your stress, that really helps. Now, one of the things, we didn't mention this before, but one of the things that I think really helps people in this area of doing what they need to do is to have a plan and to have a checklist and have a do this today kind of thing. And I wrote a book a number of years ago called Pushing the Reset Button, and that's really what it is. It's a 30-day plan to help you clean up your life and do what you need to do, to follow the right eating patterns, to get the chemicals out of your house and all that kind of stuff. And it's something that I wrote it specifically for my clients, because what's the point of me of doing all the work in the office if they're going to go home and screw it all up by eating McDonald's and watching TV all day and doing nothing? And you need to do your part too. Healing is a 2-part process. You can't see your own blind spots, but on the other hand, you do have to do something.
Right.
So that book is available, and I'm happy to send it out as a PDF format to anyone who requests it. You can buy it on Amazon. It's there. It was a bestseller when it first came out. However, I am out of paper copies at this point, and so I'm happy to send a PDF to any of your listeners who are wanting it. They can, again, either message me on Facebook or send me an email through the website on the lindaeasthouse.com. If there's a contact us website where they can send a little message. If they ask for it, I'll be happy to send them a PDF of that. And it's really a 30-day commitment to changing your life on the little things that you know what to do, because it's so hard if you don't have a schedule and a process.
Cool. That's, again, very generous. Thank you. I'm putting it into the comments as we speak. Okay, and then the last question, although perhaps not quick, but what is one thing you would say to people who are thinking of making a change, making a transition, whether it's leaping into a mobile lifestyle or starting their business or transitioning out of a career or into a different career? Those can be some of the most stressful times. So for you, how did you make the leap in your life and in your business when you have big changes or decisions or new things that you're taking on? What do you do to arm yourself to be able to make those leaps that you would recommend for people here?
That's a really good question. And I think different things have been catalysts for me at different points in my life. I know that I left my career originally and moved into doing this kind of work out of necessity. My children were very ill, and it was find a solution or who knows what was going to happen, and the medical system and the educational system were not helping. We were getting nowhere fast. And then my job it was kind of either take this promotion that I didn't want because it went even more traveling than I was already doing, or, you know, we don't have a job for you. And it was like, fine, I'm not doing that. And I jumped because, well, that's the choice I had. So it was kind of necessity pushed me out of the nest. I'm very grateful it happened. It's been a wonderful journey since then, but it was more out of, well, there aren't any good choices here, so you may as well jump for something that is good because nothing else looks reasonable. So that was certainly one of my major leaps, was necessity. This last major leap in terms of moving to Mexico and running my business from here was done more because we simply decided, and we put it out there about my husband and I, put it out there about 5 years ago that we didn't want to retire in Canada. One, we didn't like the weather, and two, we kind of saw some of the problems coming in Calgary and felt like that just wasn't a supportive place to be. And three, we spent most of our lives in Latin America. We worked in Peru for 16 years. And we just felt like we wanted to be in a less stressful, less driven, less frenetic kind of society as we eventually get old and have to retire and those sorts of things. So we put it out there about 5 years ago that when the time was ready, we would be ready to make a major move and start that process while we were still young enough to really enjoy it and to be able to work full-time still and to make new friends and create a new community and do it. We didn't want to leave it until we were 80 and then decide, well, now it's too late. And so we put that out about 5 years ago, and the pieces just started falling in place. And, you know, technology advanced in ways that made this possible. Community advanced in that more and more people wanted to do distance anyway. More and more people wanted to do Zoom. More and more people wanted to do things like Matrix Energetics, where it's completely distance, where they just send me their list on email and I send it back to them. So, you know, the whole shift of what people are looking for also made that much more doable for us. And so many pieces just fell in place. And when Randy turned 65, you know, at the university, that's kind of the end of your career at the university. They just don't renew your contract anymore. So when he turned 65, we just said, you know what, now's the time, let's do it. And within a year, we sold our house, we downsized everything, we moved everything to Mexico, we bought a house here. The transition has been seamless and smooth. And I think a lot of it has to do with, we'd made up our minds a while ago and put it out there, and the pieces have just been falling in place. And because we were paying attention, because we were watching for the right opportunity, when it came, we were ready to leap. And I think that's a big thing is, you know, put it out there what you want and then watch for the opportunities. Pay attention to what's changing. Notice the differences, because that, in scientific terms, that observation, that notice of what changes is actually what makes the change happen. Right. And so the more you pay attention to those things, the more attention you give those things. And I'm going to make it clear, not the more worry, not the more fear, not the more doubt, the more attention, the more noticing, the more observing you give those things, the more space it creates for you to make those kind of leaps.
That makes sense. So I heard a bunch of wisdom in there. Part of it was have a really clear vision of what you don't want, but also really what you do want, what you want more of. Then put that desire out there into the world. Be very concrete and specific about it. Commit to the desire, to what it is that you do want to call in. Start to then pay attention and notice when opportunities show up, as they do when we put our intentions solidly, throw that anchor into the future. And be willing to take the action steps that you need. But I also heard you say, and there were other elements that supported it, changes in technology and so forth, that facilitated it and made it easier. So look for alternative ways of approaching things, like perhaps your business. Just because you've always done it one way doesn't mean you always have to do it that way. There are changes that go on outside of us and within us that sometimes create that transition, and just looking, how do I do this differently? And I also heard in your conversation with your husband, with the universe, with yourself, a how do we make this work question, which I think makes all the difference between leaping and not leaping. It's like, because there's tons of stories we can tell ourselves about all the reasons why something won't work. I did that for 27 years, wanting to go to South America, and had all these reasons why I couldn't. And finally one day I said, well, what if that wasn't true? Then what? And I was like, oh, well, then I go to South America. And I said, okay, well, how am I going to do that? That was the first time in 27 years I asked that question. 3 months later, I was touring South America for 7 months. So it's really also the framing, but putting that intention out there and then taking action like you did, and looking for what you need to put in place to make this actually happen, so that you can have the life you want with balance. Living somewhere lovely, in a culture and in a physical environment that's supportive and sustainable, and sustaining for you. So right at the very beginning, one of your recommendations was really attend to the environment that supports you physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, in every way. So it's part of those do the practical things that you know how to do. And one of those is attend to our environment, which we seldom do. Lots of great jewels in here, Linda. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate all the goodies that you've provided for everyone. And I highly recommend that you go get her book, go get those 2 weeks of free sessions. If people want to contact you directly, is it just best to IM you here on Facebook?
Yep, that's great. They can do that, or they can go onto the website and send me an email if they're more comfortable with that. Whatever they like. Both websites have a contact me email that'll come straight through to me here.
Okay, awesome. And if you've got questions that you'd like to ask Linda, you can put them in. I'm going to, of course, share it into the Bodacity's Action Heroes, as I always do. If you have questions that you would like Linda to answer, please make sure you tag her in the comments so that she gets a little notice that someone's tagged her, and she can come back in and answer those questions if you have any. So thank you for being here. Thank you for making the time to share your wisdom and all the cool and new things that you've created, co-created, or bringing to the world, and providing for people. Boy, there's a bunch of things that have changed in how we do what we do. So
life is very different than it was 20 years ago when I started this journey, and it's amazing what we can create for ourselves and for others and for our community when we put out that intention to really find that what works and then take the action to do it. That's really the step. Is when you see an opening, take the step. One step, but take it.
I love it. And I really love how you kind of wrap that up with the context of do it for yourself and do it for your relationships and for your community and for the planet, because our wellness ripples out. So thank you for being here, Linda. I appreciate you. Have a great day, and go have a bodacious week, everybody, of taking care of yourself, your body, and the planet. Take care. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you in the messages. Bye-bye.
Bye.